What's up, Canes fans? Welcome to the Canes Insight Daily Podcast, powered by Anajar and Levine Accident Attorneys. Happy Martin Luther King Day. It's Inauguration Day. A lot going on, but we are always working here on the Canes Insight Daily Podcast. We got a lot to talk about. Miami's quarterback of the future, class of 26, Dereon Coleman, MVP performance this weekend. I was out there on Miami. I have some thoughts on some Miami prospects. Wisconsin making strong statements about Miami and Xavier Lucas choosing to leave the Winters and the mediocrity of Wisconsin and come down to the Miami Hurricanes. Big Ten came out in support. They're not going to do anything. We'll talk about why that is and a lot more. Some folks that will do something for you. That is Anajar and Levine Accident Attorneys. If you or someone you care about has been injured in an accident, you could be entitled to significant compensation. Dial 1-800-747-FREE, 1-800-747-3733. Take back control of your life with Anajar and Levine. Pete, hop in.
Sorry. There we go. Sorry about that.
Ooh, the hop didn't work?
No, I having some mouse issues back here. So I gotta say it though, D. So he's leaving the cold winters and mediocrity to come down to good weather and mediocrity.
10 wins. We're talking about preseason top 10s. Miami's ranked high. Wisconsin's never done anything. I mean, let's be real about that situation. They've never gotten over the hump because, they're Wisconsin. So Lucas has higher goals and aspirations. And he probably says, look, I saw what these guys did without any DBs. So let me be the missing piece and take him into that playoff range with, 6'2", 200 pounds, 4'3", incredible talent that he possesses, safety corner. We'll talk about the fit, just some big picture things because Pete, why don't you pull up the statement that Wisconsin put out and the Big Ten put out. But we got Carr saying wild timing on this one, fellas. This is when we're on, man. We're on at lunchtime. So we always work, we're taping all the other stuff and we'll get to it soon. But we're always working, man. There's no days off on the Canes Insight Daily Podcast because Mario Cristobal and his staff are taking no days off.
So here's the Big Ten statement first.
All right. So Pete, why don't you read this one for me here?
The Big Ten Conference stands in full support of the University of Wisconsin regarding the contractual agreement between student-athlete Xavier Lucas and the Wisconsin football program. As student-athletes become active participants in revenue sharing, it is critical that agreed-to obligations be respected, honored, and enforced. In light of current laws and association rules, information suggesting tampering and contract interference in this case by the University of Miami is very troubling. These actions undermine the efforts of its own conference as the ACC continues its collaboration with the other A4 conferences in developing a sustainable framework for college sports. This situation is just the latest example of the critical need for substantive governance reform. This all sounds great, except they signed a contract that's not enforceable yet.
Well, beyond that, I mean, just look, this statement, you could cut it down to two things. Number one, ACC. We have this Big Ten to the ACC. We're all in this scam together, right? We just signed this house settlement, which is ridiculous and is illegal and will never hold up once challenged, but at least it's going to buy them some time. We have these form contracts in the Big Ten regarding revenue sharing pursuant to that settlement. And ACC, you're supposed to be with us on this scam and pretending these are enforceable contracts. Of course, they're not enforceable. They're contingent on a settlement that hasn't been approved yet. They're contingent on a bunch of other stuff that hasn't happened yet. They're just memorandums of understanding. They're not enforceable. But what the Big Ten is telling the ACC is, hey, we're pretending that these contracts are real. You need to pretend these contracts are real. We're in this together. We're part of this cartel together to screw the players. So you're in on that scam. Help us out. That's really what the message is. And then the last statement, this situation is just the latest example of the critical need for substantive governance reform. They're just saying, Congress, we need you to give the NCAA an antitrust exemption so the NCAA does not have to follow antitrust law. We need you to protect us, or else we'll keep getting sued until the NCAA goes bankrupt. That's really the two main messages of that Big Ten statement. I won't make you read this other statement here from the Wisconsin, but Wisconsin basically said, Miami's tampering and there's a contractual agreement between Wisconsin and Xavier Lucas that he broke. Here's the bottom line, and I've seen Wisconsin fans all over our mentions talking about this, and I don't think they understood. They're like, oh, you guys be ready for the big one. Here's the truth of the matter. All right. With any kind of litigation, you got to look at what's the remedy, right? What are they doing? What do they want? What's the end goal here? So if you're Wisconsin, you say, well, we just lost a 6'2", 200-pounder that runs a 4.3 and was the second highest graded player in our defense. We want him to play for Wisconsin. Can you do that through a lawsuit? Of course not. You cannot have specific performance of personal services, meaning Lucas playing for Wisconsin against his will, through a lawsuit. That's day one. That's basically one step removed from slavery. That is impossible. Any lawyer will tell you that's not going to happen. So what's the next step? Okay, well, we don't want him to play at Miami. You can play anywhere else, but not Miami. That requires the NCAA to rule him ineligible. Problem is, the NCAA already said they're not getting involved. And the reason NCAA is not getting involved is because they've been sued so many times and lost. So they're saying, look, go ahead, play for Miami. So those two goals for Wisconsin aren't going to happen. So what's the NCAA going to get? Or sorry, what's Wisconsin going to get without the NCAA's help? Maybe they'll get some money from the University of Miami. Okay, well, what are their damages by Xavier Lucas not playing for them under their NIL marketing deal? There's no damage. They haven't even paid him a dime. And if they want to make these arguments to a court, they're going to have to basically treat him like an employee who was paid to play football. That's the only way you can make a damages argument. The problem is they're lying to the federal court over in California, and they are lying to Congress. And I mean all the colleges, the NCAA as a whole, and saying that this is not pay for play and that these are not employees. So you can't on one hand try to lie to everybody and pretend that these guys are not employees paying for play, and then go tell a court, hey, we got damaged because this guy didn't play for pay with us. So they're stuck between a rock and a hard place. And the bottom line is Wisconsin's going to do nothing. I'm telling you right now, they're not going to do anything. If they do something, it will fail. It will be all for show. All this is about is just making us think so the Congress will say, oh, there's a mess. We need to pass a safe harbor to protect the NCAA from getting sued into bankruptcy for their various repeated systemic antitrust violations. That's all this is about. From Miami perspective, the only real negative is that the Big Ten might not be too excited about you joining the Big Ten if you want to join in the future because of all this. That's something to monitor. That is actually a real thing. But as far as like Wisconsin's scary lawyers, they're not going to do anything. They're complaining. They're the college football Karen, and this whole thing is a joke. Xavier Lucas will be a Miami Hurricane, and he will help Miami secondary incredibly. Wisconsin will continue to be mediocre and struggle in the cold winter. So that's basically all there is to that.
The comment here that I guess this just came in now, but Reggie Bain, the offensive line coach going to SMU, any chance his brother will transfer there? I wouldn't expect that. I can tell you. Let me try to pull up the news, because I guess that must have just come in now. But I can tell you that for weeks, maybe months now, there was an expectation that Reggie Bain would move on to. Yeah, I guess this happened last night, 15 hours ago, yesterday. So he's joining the staff at SMU, and I this was an expected move. He was expected to move on to another opportunity.
Yeah, look, the NCAA, or I'm so stuck on the NCAA here. Bain has a relationship with Coach Justice. I believe he was his coach at FAU.
He played for him. Yeah, he played for him.
So Coach Justice, former Miami offensive line coach, now the offensive line coach at Southern Methodist. So that's the relationship there. From a Bain perspective, look, anytime you have a player that other teams are going to try to tamper with and get, you'd rather have the coach there, who is his brother. For that, that's not the reason he was on staff. He was on staff before Bain came. But I'm just saying, like, that doesn't help when you're trying to fight off people, and people are trying to tamper with Bain. That's a fact. But ultimately, I think they call him Hurricane Bain for a reason. He's a hometown hero. He was disappointed the way the season went. He's disappointed in the injury, disappointed in, the fact that he didn't get, it was a sophomore slump. So defense wasn't good. A lot of things frustrated Bain, but ultimately he's Hurricane Bain. He'll be a part of this team. Go ahead, Pete.
No, I was just going to say there is shuffling on the O-line coach front for Miami, because Pata, who was the assistant O-line coach, he's now at FIU. Then, of course, now Reggie Bain was underneath him in the pecking order, from what I understand. I would think they maybe bring someone in, underneath him, but I would expect there to be kind of an elevation. My expectation is that Dan Hajar, an offensive assistant, is going to be elevated in that offensive line room.
Yeah, that'd be look, that's a group that we feel good about as far as the whole operation. Mirabal has had, if you're going back to, let's say 2019, right, when Justin Herbert had that great year, Oregon won the Rose Bowl, defeating Wisconsin with Mario Cristobal and Alex Mirabal. If you'd say that's the first elite offensive line Oregon had, and I say elite like top 10 caliber, he's had top 10 caliber offensive lines pretty much every single year. Certainly not the 22 season where you are cleaning up a mess and trying to turn around this offensive line that they inherited. But if you subtract that, 23, they were a top 10 offensive line. This year, they were certainly a top 10 offensive line. I think probably even higher than that when you look at some of the other offensive lines in these playoffs. I don't think Miami takes a backseat to anybody's size, athleticism, production. And then, Oregon, of course, is what they did. So Mirabal's had great offensive lines every single year. They're coached well. They don't play the same way as everybody else. They're somewhat unique. You notice the splits are tighter. It's not, there's not a cookie cutter running game or offensive line system. Mirabal coaches it a certain way. He wants it a certain way, and he's very successful at it. So as long as Coach Mirabal is in charge, that's one position where I say trust the coaches. I don't always say that because that's, I've learned over these 20-something years of Miami struggling. You never say trust the coaches because they're human. They make mistakes. It's a competitive industry. There's 130 plus other head coaches and staffs trying to get an edge on them. So not everything they do is going to work. But I think with the offensive line, you have enough sustained success that you could trust Mirabal.
Question here, D, for you. Did the Big Ten create an MOU that goes against the NCAA rule with the transfer portal, basically saying you can't hit the portal if you sign this 2-year binding contract?
Everything they're doing, it's a great point from G. Everything they're doing is illegal. I mean, this whole settlement's a joke. Putting an artificial cap on the share of revenue. You already saw the Attorney General's office or the DOJ say, this is nonsense, basically, and that they reserve the right to go after the NCAA even despite the settlement. There is only one way out of this mess for the NCAA, is for Congress to say what you are doing, which is clearly illegal because you've lost every single case, is protected from antitrust suits in the future because of an antitrust exemption, a safe harbor. If Congress does not put that protection on the NCAA, they will get sued until they're bankrupt. Now, my opinion, they're illegal. They deserve to get sued until they're bankrupt. And let's start over something fresh. People love college football. They love cheering for their teams. That's not going to change. As long as you have a 3-year cap, so guys aren't just going straight to the pros, college football is going to be just fine because it's going to have the best players of that age group, and they're going to be tied to schools. The way it's conducted with the NCAA, it's a broken model. It's exposed every time it's in court as illegal. And if it falls apart and dies, that's a good thing. Do not give protection to an organization that has been deemed in violation of antitrust law every time. And it's not like a Republican Democrat thing, although I think the fact that Congress is united with one party is probably one thing that gives NCAA at least a little bit of a chance. But when this went to the Supreme Court, they were unanimous in slapping around the NCAA. Kavanaugh, who was a Trump appointee, was the most aggressive in slapping around the NCAA. Clarence Thomas hates the NCAA. And then, of course, when you get to more pro-labor, on the left, they hate the NCAA too. So this is a bipartisan hatred of this criminal organization. So their only hope is to send Nick Saban, the biggest cheater in the history of college football, to Capitol Hill to ask for this criminal organization to be protected by a safe harbor. That's the only way NCAA survives this. Otherwise, everything they do is illegal, and they're just kind of patchworking the whole thing, trying to stay alive. And, they do one thing and it creates other problems because it's just, again, look at the Xavier Lucas thing. They're trying to defend the contract, but in defending the contract, they're admitting with their language that this is an employee being paid for play. How do you say that this is interference with a contract without making those admissions? Look at their statement. You had McCann, the Harvard law professor that talks about sports law, I believe for Sportico. He pointed this out too. I mean, most people in this sports law field, and I'm not a sports lawyer by any means, but they've picked up the obvious inconsistency that Wisconsin has to deal with and the Big Ten has to deal with, which is that when you're defending these contracts and saying that someone's interfering with them, you have to talk about these players like employees being paid for play. Otherwise, how do you even make the argument? This isn't about marketing, right? So they're stuck between a rock and a hard place. And that's why the last line of that Big Ten statement is the only line that really matters, which is we need Congress to save us, because otherwise we're going to lose in court until we're bankrupt.
Matthew Catalina says, so Lucas was the only Wisconsin's only transfer they had signed this contract. Get out of here.
No, I think they probably had others. I mean,
but this is the one that they tried to enforce it.
Right. Well, he's probably the best player they lost. He's the second highest graded player in the defense. He's a corner they're not going to get out of Wisconsin. So, they kind of needed to keep him. So it's the one that probably pissed him off the most. I mean, look, Wisconsin tampers with everybody. So Wisconsin, I know for a fact, just from talking to people and knowing specific situations, I won't reveal the players, I won't reveal the coaches. Wisconsin tampers. They're in the Big Ten. You don't think they're tampering, trying to win? It's a multi-million-dollar operation. Of course, they're tampering like crazy. And by the way, I am not saying that Miami did anything with Lucas. This guy's from South Florida. His connections to Miami are plain and obvious. But the idea that Wisconsin's accusing schools of tampering, Wisconsin's the biggest tamperer of all. This is not, let's be grown-ups here about what's happening in the Big Ten. All right, you don't get to the championship like Ohio State is, with Caleb Downs going to play there and all the other transfers they got, without Big Ten schools tampering. So they don't want that dirty laundry aired. It's not I'm sure they've messed with players.
Forget the players. Their team that won the national championship last year, Michigan, was embroiled in the biggest, cheating scandal in a long time in college football. So it's just ironic. Yeah,
but I mean, again, so the reason I'm saying all that is the sanctity of the contract from Wisconsin cares about losing the player. Let me take a step back. Wisconsin cares about losing the player because Wisconsin now lost a 6'2", 200-pound defensive back that runs a 4.3 and was the second highest graded player on their defense. That's what Wisconsin's pissed off about. The Big Ten's pissed off because their form contract is being treated like, scribble on a napkin. So that's why they're upset. And they're upset with the ACC because they're colluding illegally, most likely. I'm not an antitrust lawyer, but I mean, certainly seems like illegal collusion between the Big Ten and the ACC to say, hey, listen, ACC, we know this contract is basically worth scribbles on a napkin, but if you guys treat it like it's legit, then at least the impact of it is legit. But you guys, one of your schools is treating this contract like it's scribble on a napkin and is making us look bad. We thought we were all in on the scam together. That's what the Big Ten statement says when you read it. So look, ultimately for Miami fans, here's the bottom line. NCAA already signaled they're not going to step in. Xavier Lucas is going to play corner or safety for the Miami Hurricanes. Our secondary got a lot better. We don't got to worry about Wisconsin unless we have a really bad season and end up in one of these December bowls. So, focus on this team getting better. Recruiting is about to pick up right now. The portal is closed, and Miami has put the cherry on top of a big-time portal class, number 2 in quality, only to Oregon, and I would say it's right up there with them.
See if there's any comments here. Cafe 904 says, why didn't Wisconsin keep TVD hostage?
Yeah, they're too busy tampering with Maryland's quarterback. I mean, they got other problems. They took talk about Big Ten revenue share contracts. They took a quarterback from their same conference in Edwards at Maryland.
It was a trade 1-for-1. Deani Hill for Xavier Lucas.
Yeah, that's right. They were bragging on Twitter. They got our number, our CB1. Congrats, Wisconsin, on that steal. So, Pete, let's talk a little bit about what's happening at the high school level a little bit. You guys have questions on the NCAA stuff, fire away in the comments or anything else. But I want to talk about the Beacon Adjusters prospect of the week this week, which is going to be Dereon Coleman, the quarterback of the future, the 26 quarterback commit. This is the quarterback for the class of 26, this upcoming class. He's a junior, about to go through a senior year coming up here in 25. He is a quarterback at Orlando Jones. That's the high school right next to the stadium. If you went to the Pop-Tarts Bowl, you saw the high school. It's right next to the stadium. That's where we got Malik Bryant. plays for DEF CON 7-on-7. Went to Battle Miami this weekend. I was actually at Battle Miami, but I missed the DEF CON game, and I'm kicking myself. But Dereon Coleman right there was the MVP of the entire event. You see that first. I want you know, look. You see the whippy arm action, which is what he's known for, just having some of the best natural arm talent in the country. Had a huge junior year for Jones, going to the state championship, losing to American Heritage, a game I was at. But the arm talent, the ability to just kind of flick from different arm angles. He's often compared to Cam Ward because of his angles, but he was blowing people away on three. They call him the most dominant player in the event because of the way he's throwing it. But what jumps out to me is look at the increased mass. I mean, this is not a big guy, but those of you who have seen this guy from when he committed, he's put on some weight. He's put on some muscle. And he played after I left. But according to people that were there were not Miami people that were just observing him. I got text saying, hey, he looks about, at least over 6'6'1". So he's not going to be Cam Newton, not going to be Andrew Luck, but he's getting closer to average size, which is what you need when you're a guy like this and have so many well above average traits with your arm. You just got to be, passable from a size perspective. Clearly the weight's coming on. He just looks physically more mature. His dad, I believe, is 6'2", 6'3".
He's got long arms too, which, I mean, he could continue to grow.
Long arms and big hands, which allows, I think that's part of the reason why he flicks the ball so effortlessly and throws it down the field. So people at that tweet there, another tweet there from someone in attendance. But I think you see him here throwing to Larry Miles, another Miami target. Here's Brian Smith, veteran guy, knows ball, good dude, knows a lot about high school football. And he's basically saying, like, look, and he was there. I saw him there, and he's saying, look at the growth, physical growth, man. He looks different from last time we saw him. He's never going to be huge, but the guy's getting bigger. On three's quote from the event. Again, he was the MVP. His team won the championship, the DEF CON 7-on-7 team. Here's a quote about Dereon Coleman. He came into the playoffs on day 2 of Battle Miami with some serious juice after a strong day 1 performance. Not only did he deliver, but he walked out a champion. Again, this is On3 national publication that was there to see all recruits. This is not a Miami reporter. His natural whip and ability to deliver strike after strike allowed the DEF CON United offense to light up the scoreboard all afternoon. His ability to manipulate the football, which again, those big hands come into play, and make throws that other quarterbacks simply can't make, stood out on day 2, especially in the windy conditions. His arm talent is special, and he did things with the football that defense simply couldn't stop all weekend long. He was the most dominant player here at Battle Miami, regardless of position. I was out there, man. There were big-time quarterbacks out there. You're talking about Jaden O'Neal, top 10 quarterback nationally, who's committed to Oklahoma. High 4-star. Miami was in on him. You had other top 26. The quarterback committed to Grubbs, who's committed to Notre Dame, I believe was out there. You had Keyshawn Henderson, who was just the MVP of the Navy All-America game, another 26 kid committed to Houston, but most likely going to get even bigger offers. Miami's actually looking at him. An athlete, but a very good quarterback. He was out there, but Coleman was the star of the show. Larry Miles, his top receiver. Last year, he had Vernell Brown and Larry Miles. This year, it's only going to be Larry Miles, but they had a tremendous day out there together. Larry Miles, a guy who has Miami interest. I believe that's him right there, actually, catching this long touchdown. So he's somebody that Miami's very, very interested in as well. Maybe bringing the quarterback and the receiver. Watch this highlight. This is the game I was at against American Heritage, where he ran the ball quite a bit because American Heritage was able to slow down their passing game. But look at that arm. I mean, he's got arm all day. I was talking to somebody who's in the coaching world at the Battle Miami. I'm like, what do you think about the size of this guy? And he goes, look, Bryce Young was just as small, if not smaller, at that same age, probably smaller. So he did okay. You don't want to always be living in the outlier world, but you do see comps to Bryce Young in terms of the production and the fact that he has big hands and long arms to maybe play a little bigger than his size.
It reminds me of some of these young pitchers, D, that you see that have a lot of that whippy arm talent, but their frames just need to fill out, But I the arm talent's obvious, and you saw him play against American Heritage live as well, in that game as well. And it's funny, Malachi Tony was the quarterback on the other side, but yeah, no, I think just needs to continue to, it's naturally going to happen now, fill out, as he already looks way bigger than he looks in these clips. I mean, remember, this is from the season started in August. I don't know when like this particular game is from, but sometimes 2 to 3 months makes the world of difference for these guys. And now it's the off season for him, so he can really just focus on being in the weight room and eating, and then doing all his on field work as well.
Yeah, Matthew Catalina with the comment. Brian Smith, an FSU guy, that's the guy that I just showed the tweet from, said he thinks we'll be close to a 5-star kid in the ranking soon. I don't know if they'll move him that high. I think definitely a 4-star. The fact that, look, I'm not a big star complainer, and especially now that we're doing group chat sports here, Pete, and we're really looking hard at all other prospects around the country. I mean, look, there's other guys too with traits that you can see why they're ranked high, but to have Luke Nickel, after everything he's done, still not be a 4-star on 247 when everybody else has him there, and Coleman still to be a 3-star, I think they've done too much in the offseason, both in camp settings and on the field, to not be 4 stars.
Look at this play right here, by the way.
Yeah.
He's gets outside of the tackle box here, and he's manipulating the defense. He knows he's going to go here, but he's using his eyes.
Who does that remind you of, by the way, that last play?
Cam Ward.
Yeah.
But see, that reminds me more of Cam Ward than some of the Luke Nickel stuff you were trying to tell me look like Cam Ward. I'm sorry.
Listen, but that's a comp that I've heard personality comps also from the staff, that they think that Coleman's personality is similar to Ward, just being a leader. The exact quote was that, one thing that Ward had is the ability to pull a receiver aside and kind of MF him a little bit, just tell him, hey, you're not where you're supposed to be. Stop complaining about not getting the ball. You get where you're supposed to be, and I'll get you the ball. That kind of just alpha mentality and control over the wide receivers, which at every single school, those guys talk. That's just the nature of the position. Coleman, from what I'm told, has that ability where he really runs the show. He played with some talented receivers. You mentioned Vernell Brown, Larry Miles, and he can tell him, like, hey, listen, man, stop complaining. Get open, be where you're supposed to be. I'll get you the ball, and have that sort of authority over them and respect. So again, very big weekend for Dereon Coleman. Some other guys I was impressed with here at Battle Miami, Pete, that I was able to watch in action that are relevant to Miami. Jalen Waters, Seatbelt Waters. Deep Rocco says everyone to recruit now is Cam Ward.
I'm trying to put a stop to it, Rocco. I'm sorry, man.
I'm not the one that made the comp. These are coaches. This is what they're selling him on. Anyways. Impressive player, Jalen Waters, right? This is a cornerback for Raw Miami, a program that delivered a lot of players to Miami last year. Really, the top 2 quarterbacks on Miami's board, you could argue, are Jalen Waters and Javari Flowers. J-Rock from Northwestern, Javari Flowers from Sefner Armwood, both play for Raw Miami. That's the program that sent us Bryce Fitzgerald last year, Ezekiel Marcelin, Amari Wallace. We had Hilton Stubbs from that program. Ultimately, he decommitted late in the process, but that's a program that's been good to Miami over the years. You got Cam Kitchens from there, from that organization. The names changed, but same organization. You got DJ Ivy from there a few years ago. Romola Brinson, that one didn't work out, but you've gotten guys from that program to Miami. What are you going to say, Pete?
I laughed at you said the names changed, but it's the same organization.
Yeah, it's Coach Duaso, our boy. Coach Steve, we've had in the podcast, did a great breakdown of Shannon Dawson the other day. These are all coaches for the Raw program. So anyways, they got Jalen Waters and they got Javari Wallace Javari Flowers.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Saturday, they are considered our top 2 cornerback prospects. Jalen Waters currently committed to Florida, but his teammates Gerard Pringle and Kellen Wiley are both at the University of Miami. This is Sefner Armwood in the Tampa area. Seeing this guy in person, I mean, you see it in the picture. His fingers are touching the floor when he gets in his stance. He is so long-armed. It's absurd. 6'2", great change of direction. You see him here, 4-star player. I mean, extremely, extremely impressive. You think he's ranked in the 150s. He is definitely a blue-chip guy. Seeing him in person, you see the change of direction there. He's got that. The length is a difference maker. He gets a lot of comps to DJ Ivy, who's been in that program. DJ Ivy now with the Cincinnati Bengals playing a lot. But one thing that's different, and this is something that DJ Ivy struggled with at Miami, which is why he's been better in the pros than at Miami, is he didn't really develop the edge. There you go, some speed for Waters here. He didn't really develop the edge at Miami where he had that confidence to get over the mistakes, and that hurt him at Miami. Waters is a much feistier personality, much more aggressive. You can tell just by watching him and talking to the coaches. He is somebody who just has that kind of that dog in them where they know they're the best player and they don't need to be convinced. So you have DJ Ivy physical traits, but just a little more confidence and edge to him that I think will allow him to navigate some of the ups and downs better than Ivy did, where he did lose some confidence, and that hurt him at the college level. Of course, now he's having a lot of success playing defense for the Bengals and the pros because of his physical traits, which Waters shares. So that would be the comp for Waters. Again, a more feisty, aggressive, confident Ivy. And then Flowers from Northwestern, who you'll pull up here in a minute, much different player on the other side. Again, these are both the top 2 corner prospects. Both were on campus, both like Miami. Waters commit to Florida, trending towards a flip. Javari Flowers, Miami is recruiting extremely hard. But when we talk about Flowers at Northwestern, he is much just a smaller frame than Waters. He's about 5'10", but he doesn't have very long arms. It's not like a Dereon Coleman where the arm length and the hand size is disproportionate to the height. Flowers is he's not tiny, but he's not a super lanky guy. He's pretty strong. He's not skinny. He's not small necessarily. He's just not overly long. But the speed and quickness of this dude is off the charts. He was one of the stars at the Under Armour practices, coming in there as a 26. He was consistently named as a top performer. He is already listed as a top 100 player in the country, pushing the top 75. Georgia's after him. Syracuse is after him and Calvin Russell hard. But Miami is in a strong place with Flowers. And seeing him in person, you cannot beat this guy deep. They try to throw it deep on him, but the speed, I believe, is already in the 10-4 range, is just otherworldly. You see it here. I mean, there's no chance you are throwing deep on this guy. And then once he has the ball, he's a very good returner as well. So the returning skills are there. I mean, look, this guy's a blur. So if you can get a Jalen Waters and a J-Rock Flowers, you are killing it at corner, a position that you struggled to recruit. And by the way, you get this added bonus of Flowers being one of the top returners in the country. I think he could probably play nickel as well. Build-wise, that's probably more of his build. He has more than enough speed to play outside, but his reaction time, his ability to close on the ball, his feistiness, he can certainly play nickel without a problem, and his speed will be pretty unique at that position.
Canes fans are probably like, man, I don't know if I'm ready to get hurt again at DB.
I think we're in much better shape at this point than we were last year. Again, these two were on campus this Saturday, and then played for Raw on Saturday and Sunday. Raw is a program that we've had success with. Again, Fitzgerald and Wallace last year. Stubbs, kind of unique situation, but we had him there the whole time. So I think this is a good situation for Miami. And then the other corner I want to mention, Pete, look at the speed of this dude, unreal. If you could pull up, is Camden Portis. So Camden Portis is a committed player from the Charlotte area. The name sounds familiar. The face looks familiar because this is a 4-star player who happens to be the son of Miami great Clinton Portis. Clinton Portis, you may remember, if you're older, he was recruited to play DB by Steve Spurrier when he was living in Gainesville, ended up coming to Miami because he wanted to play running back, ended up one of the best running backs in Miami history, one of the better running backs in Washington Commanders, Redskins history. So the bloodline is there with Camden Portis. He's already committed to Miami, but this is not like just sort of a legacy that you're taking because of who his dad is. This is a 4-star player with legitimate offers. He played this weekend on the South Florida Express 7-on-7 team, the other big program down here, along with DEFCON and Raw. Program Miami's had mixed results with, Jeremiah Smith last year. Some really good defensive backs that we've missed out on from that program, but we've gotten a few guys. But Camden Portis is committed to the University of Miami, and see him in person. This is, I think, where he really thrives. You see the circle on him inside the box as a nickel. Now he's not a box guy. He's a cover guy all the way, but I think nickel is where he really thrives. That's what he played at 7-on-7. He's just got incredible instincts, awareness, change of direction, smooth. He's smooth enough as a cover guy that you could put him outside and not feel bad about it. But I think nickel really is where he thrives. You see the burst blocking that kick there. He's not short. He's about 5'11", but he's skinny. He is not a big guy. I think the question with Portis, when you're projecting forward, especially if he's going to play inside at nickel, is he's got to put some weight on, right? That's going to happen. But his dad was a pretty heavy guy when it was all said and done. Definitely packed the punch. Portis, when you watch his highlights, he's not afraid to tackle, as you see here, form tackle. So I think nickel is going to be a nice spot for him. He has experience. It's not going to be much of an adjustment. He's doing a 7-on-7s. He does it in high school. Plug him in right there. Flowers, I mentioned, could also play the nickel, but with his speed, you put him outside. Jalen Waters, an outside corner all day with his length. And right there, boom, you got 3 corners that you feel great about at the University of Miami. all 4-star players. We'll see if they can close, but I like how the cornerback class is shaping up early in this process, and seeing all 3 of these guys at the Battle of Miami, they can play here no problem.
Seems like they try to keep him as close to the football as possible here on defense, which sometimes in high school, you want your better players near the ball there.
I just think it's his instincts, his change of direction. You could tell, even in 7-on-7, which is a different kind of football, he has great awareness at that spot. So he could play, look, his footwork and speed's good enough to play corner. It's not that he cannot. Sometimes nickels nickel onlys. I don't think this guy's a nickel only. I just think that's where his positive traits show up the most. There you see him getting off a block and making a play in the Panther Stadium. A question from Rocco. Wasn't Marshall Faulk's story similar? Recruit as a DB, want to be a running back. It's true. So Miami's been involved in a lot of these. And I'll transition to talk about someone else. Derek Cooper, P, will get the video ready. So Marshall Faulk wanted to play running back. Miami, Jimmy Johnson, I believe at the time, wanted him to play corner. I'm sure he would have been a great corner, maybe a Hall of Fame corner. But he wanted to play running back, goes to San Diego State. The rest is history. One of the best running backs in the history of the sport. But that hurt Miami. I mentioned the Portis example where it helped Miami. Another example where it helped Miami was Jim Kelly. Jim Kelly from Pennsylvania actually wanted to play quarterback, and Penn State, Joe Paterno, thought he should have been a linebacker. Of course, he's tough like a linebacker, but he's a Hall of Fame quarterback. Miami let him play quarterback. He came down here, and we were the beneficiary. I think we're trying to avoid these kind of mistakes in the future, which is why a guy like Derek Cooper is very interesting. Now, this is not someone I saw at the 7-on-7 tournament, but we did see him in the Under Armour game, catching a touchdown pass and looking great as a 26er. Derek Cooper, Chaminade Madonna, about 6'1", 200 pounds, 5-star player, top 30 player pretty much across the board. This is going to be one of the most interesting players in the class. He's someone I think Miami has a great chance with. Georgia's pushing. But you see there, he is a very talented running back, played running back at the Under Armour All-America game, and is very good at that position. He is also an excellent defender, safety, kind of linebacker hybrid. And some people, and I put myself in this category, feel that he's actually best on defense. Kenny McIntosh is an example that pops up into my head, who now plays for the Seattle Seahawks. He won a national championship as a starting running back for the Georgia Bulldogs. He was a running back in high school and a linebacker. Everybody pretty much recruited him as a running back, but he was probably best at a linebacker. I still think he is the better as a linebacker, even though he made the NFL as a running back. I think he could have been all pro. But you let him play running back, and look, if he's good enough to play running back, you let him stay. They won a national championship with him playing running back. Flash forward to Derek Cooper. He gave an interview this weekend where he said that Miami's recruiting him as a running back, and that he thinks he could be like a Travis Hunter and maybe play both ways.
Miles Jack.
Miles Jack did it at running back linebacker. So to me, if you're Miami, you say, go ahead. And if he can do it, you've got a great player at 2 positions. If he can't do it, you have a great player at least 1 position. And if he can't hack it at running back, maybe linebackers just kind of comes up naturally. You have him in the fold, and he's a first-round pick.
And at running back, you can get him the ball a handful of times a game and not really have to. He doesn't have to really have the entire workload of the offense if he is going to play defense.
Here you see him here on defense playing a linebacker. I mean, look at the speed of this dude, man. The closing speed of this guy's pretty special. And look at it, picks up the fumble. I mean, the athleticism is off the charts. We saw this guy at camp up close last year, P, when he was a sophomore.
Yeah,
and he stood out even then. He's going to be the best player, or one of the best players in South Florida. There you go. Look at that again at that safety linebacker spot. South Florida is back to normal as far as top 100 players. When you talk about Javari Flowers, who we just talked about, Derek Cooper, who's going to be a 5-star type player, Diabell, who's committed to Texas. Look at the coverage skills there too. Diabell is committed to Texas. He's also a 5-star type player at quarterback. Calvin Russell, who we've got a lot of questions about. I'll get to him in a second. He's a 5-star player, wide receiver. Brandon Bennett, speedster from American Heritage. He was on campus recently, one of the fastest players in the country at wide receiver. He's in the mix. And then Jordan Campbell, who is committed to Miami at linebacker, another top 100 player. So Miami, Dade, Broward, Palm Beach, back to being where it's supposed to be. Cooper, a big name. Question here about Calvin Russell from Jason. He was at the 7-on-7, wasn't playing. I believe he had a basketball game either the day before or the day after. So he's trying to stay healthy for basketball. He's huge. He's part of Raw Miami. So he plays with Javari Flowers, his high school teammate, played with Raw Miami last year with Malachi Tony, who's now at the University of Miami. So a lot of ties there. Jalen Waters, another one on that program. So you like where he's at from a 7-on-7 standpoint. Right now, Syracuse is recruiting Calvin Russell very hard. He's a legacy to Miami. His mother is in the Miami Hurricanes Hall of Fame as a women's basketball player. But I don't think that makes a big difference as far as making him want to go to Miami. He's happy to make his own legacy. Fran Brown and Syracuse are putting all their energy into Calvin Russell. He's a 5-star player. And, Flowers as well, his teammate from Northwestern. They're pushing on both those guys. They're selling Russell on his ability to play basketball at Syracuse, which we all know is a famed basketball institution. Miami still doesn't have a basketball coach, long term. So it's hard to kind of recruit him with the two-pronged approach. And look, I think right now, if we're being honest, Syracuse probably leads. Now, I'd rather Syracuse lead in January than Alabama or Georgia or Ohio State, because over time, when he really has to say, all right, I'm going to leave to go to Syracuse, it becomes tougher, especially if you have all his friends committed. So I think we're okay with Calvin Russell. Got to keep on recruiting him. But right now, Syracuse definitely has a lot of momentum.
D, there was a comment I wanted to get to here real quick because we had kind of glossed over. But Mrs. G15 said Ivy didn't have top-end speed. He ran a 4.43 at his pro day, and I think that was one of the reasons he got drafted. So I don't think it was the speed with him. I think it was, like you said, the ball skills, the aggressiveness, just that confidence at the end of the day, which he started to grow into.
Yeah, no, and good comment here by Aspire Consulting. At Wisconsin's MOU is a flawed contract. They gave a lay student a 7-page contract to sign without allowing him to have it reviewed by a third party. Yeah, the contract's absurd. And I think the real problem with this whole thing is they have to make a contract that looks like an employment contract, that acts like an employment contract, that acts, like these players are getting paid to play as employees of the school to play football, without actually admitting that they're employees being paid to play football. So it's a very difficult dance that these schools have to do. And the only way that they can really make it work is when the ACC and Miami kind of accept the fiction that it's a real contract and treat it that way. Once you just kind of walk through the invisible wall, which they did, and now he's a Miami Hurricane, the whole system goes up in smoke. And that's why Wisconsin and Big Ten were so upset. Mr. G saying, didn't see it on the field with Ivy gets torched for 80-yard TDs. He had some rough moments. He had some good moments you didn't see because he was covering guys and they weren't on the screen. But, Middle Tennessee State, he had some really, really tough moments. And again, I think lost confidence.
Getting beat doesn't always equate to speed.
Yeah. Look, there's a reason why he's in the NFL now. Yeah. They're pretty fast in that league. So he's got plenty of speed, and his height is a big.
Rocco says, after watching last year, I appreciate guys like Ivy.
Yeah, but look, we're the biggest Ivy fans. Great person, great potential. We always said he was an NFL corner. So the fact that he's doing it now after being called the worst player in ACC, by fans, is some vindication for that. They always said we were being homers when we said he was an NFL player. He had the traits always, but it was really about getting the confidence and the short memory you need at corner. And look, his performance at Miami was not as good as it should have been. He should have been a better player in Miami. A lot of people to blame there. He is one of them. The coaches are one of them. I thought the fan base was crossed lines with him in a way that you could say it doesn't affect you, but human beings get affected by things like that. I think all those people are to blame. But ultimately, the one thing that Jalen Waters has that I think will allow him to succeed no matter what is you could tell from watching him, he's got that confidence and that edge to him that's going to allow him to bounce back from mistakes maybe a little easier than an Ivy did, who's a very smart person, very smart player, IQ off the charts, but it's that confidence and that swag that helps you at that cornerback position. Muhammad Hussein saying, Wisconsin, you mad, bro? Yeah, Wisconsin is mad. Appreciate your support as always, Muhammad.
D, by the way, wanted to talk about Beacon Adjusters as well.
Oh, thank you, Pete. Beacon Adjusters. Let's talk about Beacon Adjusters. If your property has been affected by Hurricane Helene or Hurricane Milton, Beacon Adjusters Group is here to help. With years of experience handling storm-related damage, we work tirelessly to ensure you get the compensation you deserve. From assessment to settlement, our team of trusted experts will guide you every step of the way. Don't face the aftermath alone. Let Beacon Adjusters Group restore your peace of mind. Call us today. And look, this could be all over the country, not just Florida, Texas, California, everything in between. It doesn't have to be Helene or Milton. It could be other storms. Storm-related damage, call 954-466-4224, 954-466-4224. Tell them Kane's Insight sent you, Beacon Adjusters. D is saying most guys that get beat in college lack awareness, bite on double moves. That's certainly something that happens, especially when guys are really aggressive. And Rob says corners with irrational confidence make for the best corners. That's true. That's something you look for at the cornerback position. And look, Miami just brought in a ton of guys at corner, right? You're talking about Charles Brantley, a veteran, smaller guy. He certainly has irrational confidence, swagged up. If you've ever watched him, high energy guy. Ethan O'Connor, Emmanuel Carnley, big athletic receivers. One coming from Arizona, one coming from Washington State. Redshirt freshman that started last year. A lot of upside. And then Xavier Lucas, who's really good kid. Really question with Xavier Lucas is he going to be a corner or is he going to be a safety? He played very, very well at corner last year. He runs a 4.3. But since high school, that's been the debate. Is he too big to play corner? Is he more natural at safety? Does he find the ball maybe like a corner does in the air? Does he have that fluidity? Hard to say. The speed will give him a chance, though. Yeah, appreciate it. Well, got almost 300.
That's on YouTube. We got almost 1,500 between YouTube and Twitter.
We got
so
1,500 on here right now.
If you're on Twitter, then go over to YouTube and follow us on there too. I know a lot of you guys watch us through Twitter, but we go live daily on YouTube as well.
Yeah, and you can watch us on Twitter. Just do us a favor if you're not subscribed. Throw us a like, throw us a subscription. That really helps us out. We appreciate all the 1,500 watching live on a busy day, man. The holiday, got the inauguration, but we don't take days off out here. We are working. All right, Yalaha Kane. What's the real fallout? What will be written into now to the NCAA transfer bylaws? Forget the NCAA. This is all about just trying. The real fallout is they're trying to get the Congress to pass a law to grant the NCAA antitrust protection. This is just another messy situation that they're going to point to and say, fix this. We need fixing. Again, it's all a scam, but this is how they're going to use it. That's what you saw with the Big Ten statement. The other true fallout of this is that, Big Ten and Miami are not going to be on great terms with respect to this situation. Does that hurt a potential Big Ten move in the future? That's really what the fallout is. At the end of the day, this player is going to be playing for the Miami Hurricanes and helping out Miami secondary.
Just surpassed 1,500. Appreciate everyone. Once again, like and subscribe.
Go Canes. Wait, real quick. Miami Hurricane team store. I need to load up on clothes because I'm running out of Canes gear that's clean. So I need to go to the Miami Hurricane team store, MiamiHTS.com. Use promo code INSIGHT20. You get 20% off your first item. Again, you can go in the person right there next to the Thesis Hotel across the street from the University of Miami. You can go online, MiamiHTS.com. Promo code promo code INSIGHT20. I apologize. Promo code INSIGHT20 for 20% off your first item. If you go to the store, same promo code. You just say Kings Insight. They got a button on the cashier. Boom. You get it in there. 20% off your first item. All kinds of deals. Autographed helmets, winter clothes, Cam Ward jerseys, Cam Ward youth jerseys if your kids are getting into football. I know both my kids got the Cam Ward youth jersey. Now maybe they got a Carson Beck jersey in the future. So double up there. Got all the hats, all the gear. 20% off your first item. Don't waste any time. Insight 20, MiamiHTS.com. Support Miami Hurricane Athletics directly with Miami's official retail provider.
Vladdy Garcia asking D-Money Pete, what position would you use your last scholarship? D tackle, wide receiver, or linebacker, running back? He says me, pass rush, D tackle. I don't think that they're on their last scholarship.
Well, they are now, but guys are going to leave after. Yeah. First of all, there's a 105. That's a whole different issue. But as far as like the old school limit, guys are going to leave after spring. You don't know what your needs are going to be. Between guys, we pray no one gets seriously hurt in spring. We got pretty lucky last spring, but chances are injuries are going to play a role. So you got to see what happens with injury. You got to see who performs. Maybe some guy's going to perform more than you expect, and then you don't want to block them. Some guys might perform less than you expect, and now you got to get someone in that position. So they'll evaluate in spring. I think after spring, you'll see a running back added for depth. If Fletcher or Lyle get hurt, God forbid, that'll be a higher caliber player. Martinez was a post-spring addition. I don't see a Martinez type getting added unless one of those two's out of commission, which, again, we pray is not the case. But at the minimum, I think another player goes in that room just for depth purposes. I think certainly a wide receiver one who could win contested catches. You will see that added now that you have Carson Beck in play. Tight end, maybe. I don't think so, but it could be. And then defensive line, you're going to see your young players and see what you got there with your young players. I think the one thing that's really missing is a wide receiver one and then a linebacker that kind of runs the show. That's just sort of it doesn't have to be a first-round pick, but somebody that can run, hit, plays with intelligence, be that coach on the field for Corey Heatherman. Shaq Quarterman and Jaquan Johnson, who I know is a safety. I'm just talking about that type of player, whether it's a safety or a linebacker that can be the leader of your defense, that'll run, that'll tackle, that'll see what's happening, that'll play with vision, that'll play fast. They don't have to be a first-round talent. They could be a day 3 talent like those two, but you just need a guy like that, I think, to complete this defense. Hopefully it comes from within, but more likely I think it'll be someone coming from the outside.
Rocco asking any updates on the new coaches. He said, I know you guys said it's hard to guess the way Mario keeps it closed. He said, unless I missed it earlier in the show. We didn't talk about it. It just, timing is very important when it comes to a lot of this stuff, like just speculating, right? If Jason Taylor were to be talking to an NFL team right now, maybe there's something holding something up on that. And it's not like he's going to step down as D-line. Again, it's completely speculative. But what I'm saying is, like, if he were to, he's not going to, like, he's going to step down right now if there's nothing finalized with an NFL team, or maybe he's talking to an NFL team. Maybe we're looking at a different D-line coach. We're not going to fire him, right? So, like, there's a lot of different moving pieces when it comes to these coaching hires, and it's just not worth speculating on stuff right now.
Yep. I say it every time. The most fake news is on coaching hires.
Like, there's a lot of stuff contingent on 1 or 2 different things happening.
Yep.
So,
and a lot of agents want to prop up their coaches as candidates when they might not be candidates. So we'll talk about it when it happens. That's sort of my rule. The portal stuff, I'm much more willing to talk about. Recruiting, we can talk about all day. But coaching staff stuff, don't believe the hype. We'll see when they get here, and I'm sure it will be a name that gets Canes fans excited.
Without a doubt. So we'll see you guys tomorrow. Keep it locked on CanesInsight.com for all the latest. Join completely free. And remember to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Go Canes.
Go Canes.